Good afternoon and welcome to the T2A webinar as part of HMPPS Insights event. This webinar is about the young adult approach, thinking differently to secure better outcomes. And thank you very much for attending. I've got some housekeeping announcements before we get into the main event. So please do keep your cameras off and your microphones muted. I'm sure that you will start to think about questions as the participants are talking. Please do drop your questions into the chat function and we'll have a look through and ask the participants those questions towards the end of the session. So please do put them in the chat. Please also note that we are recording the webinar. You will hear from a number of speakers who have worked with T2A over the years. So you'll hear from Nadine and Kojo about the Young Adult Justice Advisor work. You'll hear from Millie from the Alliance for Youth Justice, and you'll also hear from Spark Inside, Tom and Sam. But first, we thought it'd be useful to tell you a bit more about the work of T2A. So you just have to bear with me for a few minutes as I generate the slides and talk about the work of T2A. There we are, slides are loading up. So firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Laurie Hunt and I work for the Barrow Cadbury Trust as its Criminal Justice Programme Manager. Our key focus is the key focus of the Criminal Justice Programme is young adults in the justice system, people aged 18 to 25. So I'll just go through my slides and tell you something about the formation of T2A, a little bit about our history and the work that we're doing at the moment. And that should take about 5, 6, 7 minutes. So the Barrow Cadbury Trust was particularly interested in young people and particularly interested in how society worked with young people and how they were supported. So in the early 2000s, we convened a session with a whole range of charities and statutory services which are interested in young people, so children and in young adults. And it became very apparent through the conversations the Trust was having that there was a real fall off in services available to young people after their 18th birthday. So it put together a report in 2005 called Lost in Transition, really thinking about how young adults navigate that part of their lives as they move from children into adulthood. So this work had a particular resonance for the justice system as these young adults who were very vulnerable, had particular whole range of different lacking in a number of different support that some more privileged young people had, and really thought about actually what is it we can do for these young adults as they cross into adult justice services. So a few years later, it developed the Transition to Adulthood Alliance, bringing together a range of organisations that were interested in young people, interested in the justice system, and interested in what the justice system could do better. So we've got, so you can see on the slide there, a range of different organisations that the Barrow Cadbury Trust and T2A has worked with over the years and are still involved in the work of the Transition to Adulthood Alliance. And I think you can characterise our development into 3 phases. And those phases can be seen as building the evidence base, something that we did in the early stages, making the case, taking the evidence base out and really advocating for it. And we're now in a 3rd stage of development called embedding good practice. So let's have a little look at those 3 stages. So the Barrow Cadbury Trust commissioned a range of organisations to really think about what psychology, what criminology, what neuroscience said about that young people's development and as they matured into adulthood. And there's a really clear information that you don't fully mature until your mid-20s, but there is a real hard cutoff in services at the age of 18. We collated this work and with the support of the University of Birmingham, we developed a literature review. So that was really just bringing together all of this evidence, and that information is also available on the T2A website. Yeah, with me. We then went through into making the case. So we have what we call a pathways model. That is looking at the criminal justice system from the point of view, right from the start, policing and arrest, moving through into courts, sentencing, prison, probation, and then thinking about exiting custody. And we say at each one of these points in the justice system, there should be a distinct service for young adults based on their continuing maturity. So along with a number of organisations, we made policy recommendations to really thinking about these stages and also young adults' life stages. So what did we do with this information? I'm just going to give you a couple of examples here. So for want of a better term, we took it to the top of the justice system, to the Justice Select Committee. They were particularly interested in this area of work. And in 2016, they wrote their first report on young adults and the justice system. And I know that my colleague would say that but following the first report, the Justice Committee wasn't particularly impressed by the government's response. So it followed up in 2018 with a second report, really setting out what it expected statutory services to do to support young adults at that particular stage of their lives. There's also a range of different judicial views about young adults. So there's a particular judgment R versus Clark in 2018, which said that maturity can be taken into account at the point of sentencing. Also, the Crown Prosecution Service, in its guide, the Code to prosecutors, talked about continuing maturity, and also the Sentencing Council, in its guidelines, has taken into account maturity. So that's really making the case. We've got a lot of buy-in to the idea of supporting having a distinct service for young adults, but it's not just about getting the support of organisations and getting policy asks developed. It's really about taking that information and really talking to the most important people, the people that work with young adults in the justice system at key points in their lives. So we're now at a stage we called embedding good practice. So really thinking about organisations that work with young adults and also deliver services themselves, and really think about the different stages of a transition into adulthood and the different life stages that young people go through. So I'm going to hand over very shortly to Leaders Unlocked and the Young Justice Advisors, but you'll also hear from them for about 10 minutes, and then you'll hear from Millie from Spark Inside, Millie from the Alliance for Youth Justice, and then from Tom and Sam from Spark Inside. So if you have any questions, please do pop them into a chat, and we'll come back to them once we've heard from all of our speakers. Okay, I'll just see if I've got any more slides. Just to remind you that we do have a website, and you can follow us on LinkedIn as well. So I will stop sharing, and please, Nadine, you've got some slides you want to share, so please do pop them up.
Do that. Bear with me. So, Are you able to see those? Yeah, okay, perfect. So hello everyone, thank you so much for joining this afternoon session. My name's Nadine Smith and I'm the project manager of the Young Justice Advisors, and I'm here with my colleague Kojo. We just a little bit of background about who we are. We are a group of young adults aged 18 to 30 with lived experience across the justice system, so everything including care, custody and probation. Sorry about the background noise. We basically use the power of lived experiences to connect with other young adults and have meaningful, in-depth conversations and create and produce resources. So this year's been really exciting for us and we've done so many great things, and I can't wait to tell you about some of those. But one of our main areas that we do, so we have our peer research work that we do. One of our other main areas, is our resources. So we created a set of guides. So we have a through the gate guide for young adults leaving custody. We have a care guide for young adults and young people in the care system. And we also had a guide for transitions for girls from the female youth estate into the adult estate, the female adult estate. And then this year, we have actually produced our new guide, which is your guide to the male estate. So it's the same premise as the female guide. It's basically a transition guide for boys transitioning from the secure estate into the adult estate. We collaborated with HMPPS on this, which was really cool and really exciting. And the guide has basically been created by the Young Justice Advisors using their lived experiences, what they know, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So, so we have just a couple of the sample pages here. So introductions, day ones, what to expect. It takes you from the process of actually being taken in the van all the way up to when you are taken into custody and you are searched that first time, what to expect when you're searched, what the regime may look like, as the adult estate is very different to the youth estate. So we have also included in there a case study. So there was a participant called Joe who wanted to explain his story and his experiences of transition and wanted to know that his input would make an impact, and it has. It's been very successful. We have another area of work that we do, which are our training programs. So I'm going to hand over to Kojo to talk about those.
Thank you, Nadine. I hope everybody can hear me and I hope everybody's doing well. So yeah, like Nadine said, we also have a training program which we've been developing, and all of this has been made with our young adults. So they really wanted to focus heavily on positive relationship building and communication skills with staff. This is probation staff and prison staff. And what we found was that they wanted to really focus on a 360 approach at looking at a young adult. So having that young adult story behind them, their upbringing, how that might have affected them, and bring it into this training and create loads of different kind of scenarios to go into the training. And that was to put staff into situations that are, quite real. And that would actually give them an insight into, oh, actually, this is why maybe a young adult acts the way they act, and how might I handle this situation different now, knowing that this young adult has had a hard time growing up, or, they might have issues that they, nobody knows about, because as young adults, they find it hard to talk. So that is something that we have been proud to put out there, and Nadine actually delivered some at a female estate as well, which we're actually very pleased with, because it's the first time we've worked with a female estate. And as it says here, we piloted it in H&P Berwyn, which went very, very successful, and also we'll be running it in H&P Style over the next coming months. I think that's about it with the prison staff training.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Kojo. Kojo delivered it in HMP Berwyn. I delivered it in HMP Style. And we actually have our first probation service undertaking the training in the next few weeks, which is really exciting too.
Brighton probation.
Yeah. Brighton probation, shout out Brighton probation. So what we wanted to do was really just get the training program that can help professionals and practitioners really understand young adults just on that deeper level and see that not everything is surface based, and your first instincts might not always be right, and that you could always maybe dig a little bit deeper. We also have another area of work that we run. I don't have any slides for it, but what I will do is pop up our website, because I did see people asking for where you can find the resources. So this is our website. There are some hints and tips on there for practitioners. We do have another area of work that we deliver, and we actually have created programs for the prison service for young adults aged 18 to 30. It's a 12-week program that we're currently running, or have run 2 successful ones in Humber. We've run one in Isis, and we're currently running one in Lincoln, which allows young adults in that setting to have a voice. So we spend 12 weeks with them. We upskill the young adults, and then at the end, what we do is we get them to deliver a set of findings and recommendations to the governor and the senior management team, with the hope that the governor will make at least one of the changes that the boys put forward. It was really successful, and it's something that we're still currently doing and looking to do more of as well, because they do have a positive impact. From our first one, 5 of the young adults that took part all got their category Ds, with one of them actually coming back to facilitate on the second one, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we're all just basically about putting lived experience at the heart of everything that we do and really amplifying the voices of those young adults. So thank you so much for listening to us. I'm going to hand back to Laurie. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nadine, and thank you very much, Kojo. I'm now going to hand over to Millie Harris from the Alliance for Youth Justice. Millie's going to talk about their work with will present findings from their project on children and young people turning 18 while in contact with the justice system, focusing on its research into the experiences of racially minoritized young people and the support and services available to them at this critical time of change. So Millie, if you want to you've got some slides, please feel free to put them up, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody see that? Hi, I'm Millie Harris. I'm the policy manager at the Alliance for Youth Justice, or the AYJ. So we bring together about 80 organisations advocating for and with children and young people to drive positive change in criminal justice in England and Wales. We harness the expertise of our member organisations and provide ways for them to shape policy and practice. We're running a 3-year project, as Laurie said, funded by Barrow Cadbury Trust, examining the experiences of young people turning 18 while in the justice system. And we're exploring issues spanning the youth and adult justice systems and wider support systems. And today I'll be focusing on our research. There's 3 themes for the project. The first theme is looking at racially minoritized young people's experiences, and that's what I'll be focusing on today. So let me my slides. So just to summarize quickly what our concern is and why we wanted to investigate this area. So as Laurie said in his introduction, young people turning 18 while in contact with the justice system face a steep cliff edge as they move from yacht to probation. How they're supported changes significantly. At the same time, many other services may change or fall away at once. And there's concerns that this leaves vulnerable young people at risk of harm and potentially interferes with progress to move away from crime. Because of disparities in the criminal justice system and in wider society, racially minoritized young people are disproportionately likely to experience this transition, and they may be more likely to do so from a point of greater vulnerability and unmet needs. Yet our research raises concerns that racially minoritized young people are less likely to be appropriately supported as they transition to adulthood, which compounds those negative impacts of the cliff edge at 18. So just to quickly whiz through the key concerns about why these young people may be less likely to have that appropriate support at this stage of their lives. So first of all, there's stereotyping, racial prejudices and unconscious biases such as adultification, where particularly Black young people are viewed as older, more culpable and less vulnerable. These may change the way practitioners inside and outside the criminal justice system respond to racially minoritized young people, and and have an impact on the level and the type of support that they're deemed to be in need of. The criminal justice workforce don't necessarily have the right skill set and training to work with this age group or to effectively interact and develop relationships with people from different cultures, which is sort of the definition of cultural competency, which is a phrase we hear sort of thrown around quite a lot. And so this sort of group is put at a double disadvantage on account of age and ethnicity. There are systemic issues around probation, in particular, that means services are overly focused on risk rather than vulnerabilities and strengths, maybe struggling to keep their head above water, and don't necessarily have access to the right programs and interventions. And finally, experiences of being let down or unfairly targeted by professionals over their sort of lifespan can create mistrust among racially minoritized young people, meaning they may be less likely to engage with the support if and when it is offered. So what does this mean in practice? I hope you can see those. That's quite small writing for me, but essentially what we wanted to do with this research was understanding what good support looks like for this particularly frail group of young people at this particularly tumultuous time in their lives. We think is really critical to stop disparities that start in childhood but then may persist and worsen into adulthood in their tracks. So we asked professionals from across the criminal justice, civil service, voluntary and community sector, academia, and young people themselves about what key properties for support that would be culturally competent in practice and help them while they transition to adulthood. And we can sort of roughly summarize in these 10 properties. So the first is, which came out really strong, around focusing on developing positive identities. So this is around taking a strengths-based approach that focuses on empowerment, potential, and opportunity rather than treating young people like a problem to be fixed, and looking specifically at supporting the development of a pro-social identity. And delving into specific issues around identity for Black young men, examining masculinity and what it means to be a man, how to be vulnerable, encouraging mindfulness and reflection. These were some of the suggestions. And I recently saw a presentation of the work that's been the outstanding work that's been happening at Swindon Youth Justice Service, which is all focused on pro-social identity building. So I definitely recommend having a look at that. The second is age-appropriate support. So Laurie has already touched on this, but developmentally appropriate support for young adults, taking a more fluid approach across this life stage, looking at sensory needs, functionality and capacity rather than just chronological age, and ensuring a distinct treatment of young adults. Number 3, support that bridges gaps. So support that stays with a young person as they transition from a youth to young adult and works with them consistently over long periods of time, creating that strong, trusted relationship that carries the young person through as they experience multiple destabilizing changes. Number 4, challenging structural barriers. So those working with young people have the confidence to talk about racism and structural barriers and help young people to explore their experiences. They understand racism, intersectionality, and challenge racial bias wherever they see it. And those we spoke to were really clear that, you know, individual practitioners need to be supported to be able to have these conversations, but also managers it's really critical that there is a culture being built in which sort of anti-racist practice is the expectation. The fifth characteristic was support being relatable, and I think this is probably the one that came out the most. So young people can relate to those working with them, finding them credible and relevant. So practitioners who have been through childhood trauma themselves can understand and connect with young people on that level. Practitioners of the same class or ethnicity can be perceived by young people as easier to engage with, particularly when talking about issues around race. But having said that, while race can be really important, it isn't everything, and a practitioner's background and their motivation are critical, and they need to, be supported to have the skills to relate to a diverse range of experiences. And sort of closely linked to that is being passionate. So young people feel that those working with them are genuinely concerned and interested in their lived experiences, including around race. And practitioners are passionate about working with this specific age group and want to tackle racial disparities and make a difference. Number 7, community-based. So support that is localised and provided by those who live in the communities young people are from and are well placed to have insider perspectives. I feel like I'm running on too late, so I'll just whiz through. Meeting specific needs, so identify needs and provide tailored, well-resourced multi-agency support to address prevalent vulnerabilities, including speech and language needs, mental health services, looking at underlying risks like around housing and financial instability, exploitation and education. Support that hears and stands up for young people's wants and needs. So this is especially around young people being able to co-create their support and have their experiences heard and embedded in policy and practice, and having their needs advocated for. And finally, non-authoritative and independent support. So support that is seen to be different from the systems racially motivated young people have been let down by, and doesn't take an overly directive or authoritative approach that they have too often experienced before. So these sort of characteristics have led us really to the conclusion that the voluntary and community sector, particularly organisations led by and for the communities they work with, has a vital role to play, often being able to meet a lot of these criteria. But having said that, so first of all, probation leads need to commission the right services, and yacht managers, practitioners need to be aware of what's available locally and make the most of referrals where they're available, but also look to learn from the example that the voluntary and community sector sets in terms of how they work with these young people. But having said this, the onus definitely cannot and must not all fall on the voluntary and community sector to reduce racial disparities. It's the responsibility of every agency and every practitioner to understand what good support looks like for this group. A referral to a Black mentor, while Black mentors came out a lot in our research as being really fantastic, it can't be like a box ticked to the duty to resolve racial disparity, outsourcing the solution while overlooking a lot of other factors like how risk assessments and how pre-sentence reports are conducted. And I'll just finish by saying that the example set by the Newham Youth to Adult Hub, the transitions pilot in London, really, we would really encourage being looked to and learnt from, where the approach combines good localized commissioning with an age and culturally competent culture within the probation service itself that's really focused on young adults. So that's it. We published an evidence review earlier this year if anyone is interested, and we are publishing the briefing on racial disparity in the next couple of weeks, which we would love to share with you all, or you can find it on our website once it's published. And then we will look at our next themes, which are around safeguarding young people at risk of exploitation and young people in transition in the secure state. Hand back over to you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciated it. I really like that 10-point sort of pathway model that you've developed, and look forward to reading the briefing once it's published. So I'm going to introduce now a team from Spark Inside, Tom and Sam, and they're going to have a bite-sized demonstration of a strengths-based coaching approach to young adults. So welcome, Tom, welcome, Sam, and it's all yours.
Great, thank you very much indeed. It's good to be with you all today. So I just want to talk very briefly before Sam comes in and actually gives you the meat and veg of the presentation. I just wanted to chat with you a little bit about the asset-based approach, because obviously it's one of those things that gets bandied around, but what's it actually mean? Well, I came across it at about the turn of the century when the term came over from America when I was working at LEAP Confronting Conflict. That's a youth in conflict organisation. So working with young people on the conflict that they have in their lives. And that could be conflict with themselves, conflict with others, maybe authority figures, conflict between groups of them. And that was really a way to engage people to start to think about self-awareness, to start thinking about how to really develop some of those other assets that help them to navigate life, because we believe that the only way to really support somebody in becoming being able to develop their autonomy and their agency, their ability to think and to choose for themselves, is through a strong supportive relationship and an asset-based approach. And that's what we do with coaching here at Spark Inside. Now, this gentleman who I'm going to introduce you to is Sam Onagarua, who's worked beautifully with me developing something called the Black Hero's Journey, which was really our response to the issues that Millie so well outlined just previously. And it's a Black coach-led workshop for young men in prison who identify as Black, and really helping them to find the assets and the strengths and the value for themselves in that identity. And so what's been really important for us in this is thinking about the challenging spaces that people have navigated, the skills that they've developed in response to that, and supporting them to find new ways to harness those so that they can use them to take themselves in a new direction in life. Anyway, that's my 2 minutes done, so I'll pass over to Samuel, and he'll take you through the how he actually does that. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Tom. Much appreciated. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I echo Tom's sentiments. It's really great to be in a space with so many like-minded people doing such fantastic things. As some of you may know, Spark have been coaching within the justice system, within prisons for over 10 years. They've reached over 700 men, and they're focused on a program called The Hero's Journey. The main premise of The Hero's Journey is the focus of change. It's the acknowledgement of change. As everyone in this space knows, it's damn near impossible to tell anybody that they need to change, and that's not the plan behind it. It's ultimately to acknowledge the fact that change is a constant, and what makes us different is how we navigate through it. As Tom mentioned, I'm a life coach. Now, sometimes that could be an instant barrier when I meet these young men, because it's a case of them trying to understand what a life coach is. And if you speak to 10 life coaches, you'll get 10 different explanations. So I come with an analogy and an explanation of myself being like a personal trainer. This is something that a lot of the young men seem to be able to really understand and visualize. And I expressed that, a personal trainer doesn't lift the weights. A personal trainer isn't doing the work. The personal trainer isn't doing the sweating. That's what you're doing. But you are, collaborating with your personal trainer because you have a goal in mind, because you have a direction, a focus. And then I expressed that I do exactly that, but for the mind as opposed to the body. So instantly there's that understanding of, what I'm there for. When I'm in this space with these young men, one of the things that I notice instantly is their own surprise that they're able to critically think for themselves. And if you get me started on that, I'll go off on a tangent. But I'm sitting here in a university having done some lecturing today, and I can assure you that these young men can critically think a lot better than some of the students that I collaborate with. I think as a result of this, they can start to plan forward. They can start to look forwards as opposed to looking backwards, which helps and really leans into what the hero's journey is, that focus of forwards. I can wax lyrical, and I'm going to continue to, but I think it's really important that I don't just say, this is great, this is fantastic, here's the theory behind it. I know that Tom has some feedback from some of these young men that have expressed their experience in the journey. So if you'd like, Tom, I'll pass back to you to share that, and then I'll go again.
Great, thank you very much, Sam. So we really think that it's important to keep any measurement that we do of the of progress within the relationship, because that is the key aspect of the work that we do. So we use something called the youth star, which sits inside the relationship between the coach and really supports the holistic nature of coaching. And it measures change in 6 different areas: their interests and activities, what it is that they'd like to be doing, their hopes and dreams, that future focus that Sam was talking about, education and work, because there might be areas of that which would be supportive to them to take forward those hopes and dreams, health and well-being, because obviously none of this can work if they aren't well, communicating, because let's face it, that's what we're doing now, because it's important in order to share ideas and to understand others, and obviously that key one of choices and behaviors. So a very sort of asset-based set of measures to have in place, as opposed to the kind of deficit-based criminogenic measurements that are often used to see how successful they're being. And in the last while, we've seen people making a lot of progress in all of these different areas, and that's not just them feeling good at the end of a session or at the end of a workshop, but actually measuring the change over time, because it's an evidence-based tool as far as the 5 stages of progress that can be made. But I think it's the story is told best in their own words, which was, and this is a quote from a young man who recently completed the Black Heroes Journey, which we've been piloting in ISIS and are just beginning to roll out in some of the other prisons across London. And I think it's, the biggest potential asset that people have is their identity, how they view themselves. And often that's, a big challenge for people, because they're very used to being viewed in a certain way. And sometimes they internalize some of those perspectives that have been, some of those opinions that have been voiced around them again and again. And that's the gift that coaches like Sam give them, is giving them a chance to reimagine that identity. And through that, to be able to start to engage in the present and the future in a different way. So let me hand back to Sam and stop sharing that, and he'll finish off for us. Thanks.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks a lot. We're really lucky to do what we do at Spark. It's super rewarding, but I'd be a liar as a coach if I didn't tell you that there were barriers, and I can imagine for many of yourselves there are barriers too. And sometimes, regardless of the training that you have, regardless of the knowledge that you have, the education that you have, it's really about leaning into who you are as an individual to navigate through those barriers. I'll give you a quick example. I was doing an online coaching session with someone in the community, and then all of a sudden I heard they'd fallen asleep, and I thought, you're not serious. I can't lie, I was humiliated. That's what came to me. I was like, right, how do I react? But ultimately, just like life in general, it's about thinking about the things that you can and can't control, what your responsibility is and isn't. There wasn't anything in the coaching manual, in the coaching handbook, that could have helped me navigate through that. So I just leaned into myself. I so happen to be good at accents and impressions, and extremely loudly I put my best Denzel Washington Training Day impression. I won't give it now because this is a PG conversation, not an 18. And he woke up, he laughed his head off, and we really built a rapport. And from there, he communicated better. He let me know exactly what was going on, why the fatigue was. So the point I'm really trying to make is, you know, with regards to what we're all trying to do here, it's about really, you know, using certain tools. Some of them we have within us, so some of them we go and learn. I thought to myself, and Tom and I had the conversation, you know, how could we really help this community that we have here in what we're doing and trying to move forward. So I thought of some tools. Many of them I'm sure you guys are aware anyway, but ones that I know that have helped me and allowed me continual success in what I'm doing. And the first one's a really simple one. It's just to check in with yourself on a regular basis, or in the mornings when you're navigating to work, or if you're working from home, and just actually asking yourself how you're feeling, and then asking yourself what could get in the way. It's just leaving that judgment at the door, as we all know. When they arrive at our proverbial door, we may feel a certain way as a result of experiences we've had with previous people. But you know, just remember that their presence is success. And you know, trust yourself, trust your experience. And it's that balance. It's if you can take that experience that you have with that you know, mindset of what your curiosity was like on your first day, you know, and on your first day there were no assumptions. On your first day you realized that they had all of the answers, and on your first day you were aware that you knew nothing. And for want of another analogy, it's almost like seeing those young men and the information that you're passing on a conveyor belt, and just knowing that it may go round and round, or it might be the first time that the information that you provide or the space that you provide is on that conveyor belt, and just allowing them when they're ready to take what they need from that conveyor belt. And it may not be with you as an individual, it may be much further down the line when you're not even present. And again, that's just focusing on the things that you can and can't control. So yeah, my call to action for everyone would be to, you know, try these things, go back to that version of you that was fresh and new, and also lean into that fantastic experience that you have, and then, you know, try and see what you notice in yourself, and try and see what you notice in the people that you are working with and collaborating with. And I'm sure that the service that you provide will continue to flourish. Thanks for your time.
Laurie, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much, Tom. And please do take a moment to reflect on what you've heard. If I could ask the participants of the call to come off their cameras and come onto their cameras, and we can ask some questions. So I can see there's a question here from Akaya Stevenson. Akaya, do you want to ask your question to the group?
Yeah, I'm from an organisation called Just for Kids Law. I'm a criminal solicitor, and I have many clients. Obviously, it's really great to hear about the Black Heroes programme, and but unfortunately, it feels like something that's not necessarily accessible to some of my clients, even though they would probably really benefit from it. And I wondered kind of how many young people they're making the programme available to, and whether they have to have specific sort of preconditions, such as having an enhanced status in the prison, or sort of how they access it.
Sam?
Do you want to take it, Sam?
Yeah, no problem, Tom. Yeah, great question. So it's not a case of being enhanced. I'm aware that Spark are, you know, so passionate about it. We're trying to roll it out in as many places as we can. But there's something our CEO said last week that really kind of rang true with me. It's about not losing us in what we do, and not losing our identity. So I think to give you correct information is to say that don't be surprised if that service arrives at the door or the feet of some of your young men. But when it does, it will kind of remain intact with its authenticity. It won't be a case of kind of bending or adjusting to what the space of the environment is, but staying kind of, you know, really tough and really kind of when I say tough, not tough as in punishment, but tough in its trueness to itself, to provide that best service possible. So I couldn't give you a timeline. I couldn't say, you know, individually, case by case, that person's eligible or that person isn't. But what I could say is that Spark are really, really passionate about it. The feedback's absolutely fantastic. I get to witness it in real time, and it came from, as you can imagine, representation. It was, you know, coaches standing before some young men that didn't potentially look like them, and we really listened at Spark, and we really said, okay, let's do it, and then, you know, took that time to really create it. So it will come, and it will, when it arrives, it will be excellent, I'm pretty sure.
So
Thank
on
you.
a slightly more practical level, we've piloted it in ISIS 3 times. We've just completed the run in Brixton for the first time, and we're waiting to hear from HMPPS whether we've got innovation funding to take it forward in Brixton and Feltham over the next 2 years.
Brilliant.
But we're currently delivering in Highdown, Scrubs, ISIS, Cookenwood, Brixton, and Coldingley is about to come online, and I have missed one there, but they'll have to forgive me. So but that's the standard hero's journey. But and Black Hero's Journey is everything that standard hero's journey is, plus more material around identity, which has made it a 4-session workshop rather than a 3-session workshop, and then it changes which coaches you have available throughout.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for the
much for
question.
your response, Tom, Sam. If you do have any questions, again, please do put them in a chat, or if you want to raise your virtual hand and ask a question to the group, please do that. But while you're thinking of your questions, I have some for the group as I was listening through. And part of the work of T2A is thinking about that continuing maturity through past the age of 18 into your mid-20s. And I thought maybe anybody's welcome to answer this, but maybe I thought I'd focus on Nadine and Kojo. When you work with young people, do you see that some of those younger people actually can develop their maturity as you work with them?
Do you want to go, Kojo?
Yeah, I can go for it, and then I'll leave it on to you. From my experience, I can definitely see a change within a lot of these young adults. And for me, it comes because at first, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of you can agree, like at first, it's always a bit difficult to get through. But I think once they understand what we're trying to do with them, and you know, they get spend a bit of time with us, then I really do start to see them open up. I start to see them exhibiting their skills that they actually have, that some of them didn't even realize that they had, like the critical thinking skills, especially with like the 12-week program. I saw a lot of development in that, and like Nadine touched on earlier, one of the lads that we had, he was getting in a bit of trouble while he was in there, but you could tell that he was a smart lad. And after the 12-week program with us, everybody else got their DCATs and stuff, but he showed so much maturity and so much growth that he ended up co-facilitating the next cohort with me. So Nadine didn't really have to come in. So that was a prime example there of maturing through the course. And actually now he's actually outside now, and now he's doing volunteer work, and he's come to one of our meetings that we've had. So I have definitely seen a lot of a lot of growth within our programs, and it all comes from just, you know, giving them some belief, and also, like we said, just unlocking the skills that they never really knew that they had, and giving them an opportunity to develop new skills as well. So yeah, that's my input. I don't know if Nadine wants to say anything or good.
I'll just add, like, based off of our experiences and the different types of young adults that we've worked with, I feel that just holding a space allows them to recognize kind of where they're at as individuals. Being around their peers as well allows them to kind of see where they're at, and then just giving them that time and that self-belief allows them to mature and develop. I think I would say that I'm quite lucky having Kojo as a co-facilitator and having the young advisors as a team to co-facilitate, because it allows the lived experience element to come in, which I also then think help develop that maturity level, because they can see a prime example of somebody who maybe has been through the justice system, come out and is now in a position where they could potentially be. So yeah, that's just kind of my take on it.
Thank you very much, Nadine and Kojo. And I'm just going to take an opportunity to ask a couple of questions before I wrap up the session. A question to Millie. You talk about you work for an alliance. Can you tell me a little bit about the members of the alliance and their interest in this area?
Yeah, so we're actually the Alliance for Youth Justice. So traditionally our interest has always been in the children's criminal justice system. So our members range from, they're all non-profits, and they range from large national charities like Barnardo's, the Children's Society, etc. The big justice charities like the Howard League or Justice. And then they range all the way through to really small grassroots organisations. And I suppose we see ourselves in the middle of a Venn diagram. Some of our members are children focused, some justice focused, some, work with children in care, or they do youth work, or they're legal organisations like Just for Kids Law, who's on this call. But they all have a common interest in improving the youth justice system. And so we sort of advocate with and on behalf of them. And the reason why, so we've always focused on under 18s, but I suppose in recent years it's become more and more obvious, particularly as the numbers of children in the youth justice system have thankfully decreased. A higher proportion of children that are in the justice system are those older children, 16, 17-year-olds, who will be experiencing this transition. So it's become an area that has raised more and more concerns. And a lot of our members just work across that age range. So a lot work, 16 to 25-year-olds, which is one of the reasons why we see them as a really vital resource for this transition, because they can work with children across the transition at 18. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Thank you, Millie. Appreciate it. And yes, there is a lot of good work happens in the youth justice system, community and in custody, and how can that be carried on past the age of 18 when they transfer into the adult system?
Yeah, I think that is definitely something we're trying to achieve with the project. Is normally we're looking at what's wrong with the youth justice system and what needs to improve, but actually there are a lot of things to learn in the approach that there's a lot of really good ways that the youth justice system works with children that aren't necessarily applied to once they turn 18, that we hope we can bring that perspective on.
Thank you, Millie. I just got to call out, so if anyone has any questions, please do raise your virtual hand and I'll bring you into the conversation. But if you don't, we've got one here from Ali Gibb. Ali, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's a question as much as to say that I'm just so inspired by what I've heard today. And, it's lived experience for me now is I mean, I've worked for a long time. I am lived experience in many different areas, but it wasn't something we could actually work with a long time ago. So it's really exciting for me that this is happening. I worked at Bronzefield Women's Prison I was embedded there for about 2.5 years prior to COVID, working with the women. And I'm loving the work that everyone's doing. And I've worked with men in prisons as well, but I'm just wondering how much the work is working with women. And I might have missed a bit because I had to go out because I've got a dog here and it wanted to go out to the garden. But, it's I just wanted to kind of know, is that developing at the same rate as the work with the young men, both of which is incredibly important? And I'm just loving your work. So that's it, really. Thank you.
So I'll sort of hand it over to whoever wants to answer that question about working with women in the women's estate or women in community.
I can talk a little bit about it, just briefly. So just from our part as the Young Justice Advisors, we've actually just got a new piece of work in that we're actually going to start delivering in Style, and we're also pending training in Bronzefield as well. Basically, what we've done is we've taken our initial training that was created by the Young Advisors and we've tweaked it to be women specific and women focused. And the piece of work in Style is going to be really interesting because we're delivering training to the practitioners and to the staff in the prison, but we're also going to upskill a small group of young adults to then deliver alongside us and also other staff members to upskill the next set of staff, if that makes sense. So it's almost like a train the trainer program, including young adult women. We did a piece of transitions work in there too, and the women's estate is something that we're going to try and expand into a little bit more for sure. Obviously I don't know about any of the other organisations, but it's something that's happening on our end. Yeah, and there's some amazing organisations that are doing work in the women's estate.
Thank you very much, Nadine. I'm going to put a last call out for questions now. If there aren't any questions, I can see Millie, you may want to say
I was
something.
just going to say that as a sort of precursor to this project, we did a project with the Agenda Alliance, which is the Alliance for Women and Girls at Risk, called the Young Women's Justice Project, which was all about 17 to 25-year-old girls and young women. And it made a number of recommendations around improving policy and practice. And we're currently sort of trying to embed some of those recommendations by speaking to police and crime commissioners, etc. But yeah, if you're interested in knowing more, I can share a link.
Just from our perspective, the hero's journey has always traditionally been focused on the male estate. Joseph Campbell, who did the sort of theory work that we then picked up on and turned it into an interactive workshop, was very much focused on the hero's tale from across the ages and across the different sort of cultures, and we believe that actually the reasons that women end up in prison and some of the things that keep them trapped in those cycles are markedly different, and so we didn't want to just try and transpose something that's based on a male hero model into that, but it is something that we are looking at, and we are in conversation with some women's prisons about that.
Thank you very much, Tom, and good luck and engaging.
Thank you very much.
Developing the program for a wider set of participants. I'm going to bring the call to an end now. So thank you very much to everyone who's spoken. I'm sure they'd be very happy to for you to go on their websites, look at the resources that they have, and if you want to reach out to them, I'm sure I'll be happy for that to have a conversation. Please be aware I've just put the link to the T2A website on the chat. The resources that the work that Barrow Cadbury has supported with the organisations is available there. So please do go and have a look, and please do have a look at all the different range of work that we have developed. And a last call out: we do produce a regular newsletter focused in on young adults in the justice system. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website. So thank you very much all, and I hope you've had an informative hour. All the best. Bye bye.